Urban Gardener DC. For today's episode, I wanted to go back into our discussion of germinating in the late winter for some early spring crops. Forgive me, I'm just moving my homemade hot sauce that I made last summer. Had some folks here sampling some of the stuff I was working on. But for the purposes of this video, let's get into some early germination for your winter, late winter, going into spring, so you have early crops. So what I have here today is I just germinated about 10 days ago some beautiful broccoli. And I've germinated these just in a little 12 cell tray under the same grow lights, but they're at a point now, if you see a little bit on the tips here, they're getting scorched because they're getting up to the point where they're hitting the top of that plastic cover, and then that constant daylight, excuse me, that constant grow light on top of them is just starting to affect them. So I'm gonna up pot them into these 3-inch plastic cups, trays. Now what I've done here with these is I've pre-soaked them. So I've already stuffed in the bottom of these pots probably about halfway down the leftovers of, as you saw in a previous video, of how I was sifting out the good topsoil, excuse me, and then putting the best of the topsoil into my seed cells. That becomes a lot finer, easier for it to develop roots. But I'm still using the rest of that topsoil that's already has nutrients in it. It already has pretty much everything a juvenile vegetable is gonna want. So I just kind of separated them so that I don't get stuck with all this granulized wood chips. So I'm putting that in the bottom of my pots. One, it contains all the same fertilizer and everything else that was in the potting mix. As well, it's going to give it a loose area for that root system really to germinate deeply. Now, I've only filled them up halfway on purpose because I do not want these initial seedlings to get to the very top again. I want to kind of bury their roots down a bit on purpose. So I'm gonna pop one out here. And they're a little damp, but after 10 days, you can already see the roots doing a wonderful job developing. So I'm gonna take one of my half-filled trays and I'll pop it in there so it's not even coming barely out of the top edge. And then I'm gonna take the rest of that already sifted potting mix and just sprinkle it around the edge. Just like so. I'm gonna grab a little more and just gently sprinkling it around the edge. So now I'm in a sense, I'm burying this broccoli down so it's not gonna be shooting out the top and getting too close to that grow light. Further, I'm also developing a better root ball for this broccoli to grow into. So I'll go ahead and do these other 6, and I'll come back and show you exactly how they appear finished under the grow light. Be right back. So we are all potted up. We have all 6 of those broccoli now transferred into those 3-inch pots. I put them in a simple aluminum baking dish that you would get from a dollar store. If you remember, it had the plastic dome on top of it. But now, because these have germinated about 10 days, 11 days or so, I'm gonna actually leave them off of the pot, leave the top off of the pot, because I'm gonna keep underwatering down there in the tray. You can see it's moist. I let these soak, I drained them, then I potted them into these 3-inch pots. And then simply just took the already sifted potting mix And then also the water that I used, I put in a water-soluble fertilizer. So now that these roots are going to start diving down into that water, in addition to the nutrients that are in the potting mix itself, they're going to now start to get some fertilizer as a young plant. I actually used, if you're curious, I used a 20-20-20, but I diluted it into a half gallon and did equal parts, right? I should also note that when you first up pot any type of vegetable into a larger container, you're going to get some irritation from the root system, and similar to these broccoli here, they're just going to flop over. And there's not much you can do about it. It's just transplant shock is pretty much all it is. Within the next, I would say 12 to 24 hours, they're going to perk right up. As long as you put them into a nice water draining, moist soil, those roots are going to start to establish themselves over the next 12 to 24 hours, and you'll be perfectly fine. So it called for 1 tablespoon to a gallon. So I just used half in the half gallon, and then I'll just keep that 1 bottle pre-mixed, and that's what I'll keep watering these broccoli with. So guys, if this was helpful, if this has added some insight to germination, doing germination early in January, and then being able to get out for an early spring crop with some of your cold crops, your broccoli, the lettuces, leafy greens, kohlrabis, all those things, I'm going to be doing a bunch of series on getting these potted up in a similar manner. So if you like this, please hit a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I'd love to bring you more content like this. I'd love to hear your insights on this as well. So I will see you guys on the next video coming up pretty soon. Bye.